Welcome to the Ken Hill Podcast. This is Ken Hill, and welcome to podcast number 78. I'm recording an intro to the topic at hand today. One, I wanted to separate some of the general updates versus the actual podcast topic. So we're just gonna dive right into it. So a little housekeeping. And yeah, it's been a while since I've recorded a podcast. I've been busy. We've basically kind of condensed an entire year into 4 months, and there's been a lot going on. And I haven't taken this time for granted, especially on my own stuff. I've had 2 or 3 fairly significant breakthroughs in just the way that I'm teaching and the way that I'm communicating things, and this podcast is one of those things where it's things that we've already sort of done, but putting it all together for everyone is what we needed to do. So that's you're getting one of those breakthroughs, and then there's 2 or 3 more in the queue with podcasts coming out. And the way that this podcast came about was as we had to do more things away from the track this year. And of course, we're doing more things at the track, and we're trying to take advantage of this time at the track. So we really spent more time connecting all of these different things together and trying to provide this feedback loop for everyone. So we really wanted to work on consistent training, because it's like, okay, I want to go run a 10K. And just because you go run a 5K once doesn't mean you're set to go for the 10K. No, you've got to keep training and keep training and keep training and look at your feedback. How am I doing? How are my times? How are my legs? All these different things. And it's the consistent training that will get you there. And this really came about, honestly, with a lot of the Racers 360 stuff, when I'm getting more people signing up for some of those sessions. And we could take one session, come back, and look at their next session with the things we were improving on. We're seeing just absolutely remarkable things by just literally sending videos in and sending data in. And it's this consistent training, building this process that gets the improvement. And I really think the thought there should be is that your improvement compounds. So it's just not getting feedback once, it's building this loop. And this is where your improvement just keeps compounding and compounding and compounding. And, just being steadfast with it. So I'll go into a story because the story has this one that just really, really sticks by me is, when we had the Rick race team and, we're competing at the very sharp end of the 600 class, and one of our riders came in and he qualified first. So qualified first and came in and he said, yeah, the bike is great. He goes, I don't want to touch the bike. The bike is great. Everything's good. I'm going to go get ready for the race. We have a download process, and the download process takes all of the bike information as well as all the rider information. So we do a bike download and we do a rider download. He qualified first. It would have been really easy at that point just to say, okay, great, we're good, let's get ready. Instead, no, we still did our download process. We still did things the exact same way. And during that download process, we actually uncovered not 1, but 2 things that improved our situation for the race. And we ended up finding something with engine braking, and we actually found something in the rider that we thought that he could do better. So it would have been easy to skip over and say, dude, we qualified 1, we're good. And no, we keep the process going. We keep the feedback loop consistent. And by unpacking that, right, uncovering those things, we found things to improve on. So it's the consistency here that we want you to build. So just, again, starting your feedback loop. The other thing with this, I know there's a lot of information coming at you in this podcast. And honestly, there was enough there. We could have done a series on each one of these categories. And I am totally up for that. But let's start this first. Let's get your brain wrapped around this. Let's start your feedback loop. Let's get these categories going and building each one of these categories for yourself. And if I get enough feedback I'll improve by doing a series on it. So All right, without further ado, let's jump into podcast 78. Welcome to the Ken Hill Podcast. I'm Ken Hill. I think the first time that I truly appreciated feedback or was able to step back and see what it could do for a rider was at the end of 2006. And at that time, I was instructing at Freddie Spencer School, and I was instructing and I was giving feedback to the students. Of course, I was, and we were training riders with Freddie. And at the end of 2006, what I think what really brought home to me the importance of feedback was when Nicky Hayden came. Nicky had just won the 2006 MotoGP championship in a very challenged year for him, but he did it. And at the end of that year, they were going to go to a different displacement bike in 2007, and Nicky came to the school. And Nicky came into the instructor changing room, and we all said hi, and I didn't really know him, but he knew that I was there as part of Freddie's crew, and he says, "Yeah, I'm going to be riding today. I'm working on X, Y, and Z." And he said, "If you see anything that can help me improve, stop me and tell me." And this was such a big deal for me, and it was such a revelation that here's a guy. He's the best in the world right now, but yet, of course, he's trying to improve. And the importance of having a trusted source that he could rely on to give him the feedback that he needed to get quicker. So that was something that I said, wow, if Nicky's looking for this, and here I know we're doing this on a student level, but if we're at the very, very sharp end of the sport and we're looking for that was something that I really doubled down on. And the other thing that I took that opportunity is when Nicky rode, and I had the opportunity to watch him, is I basically pulled my bike to the side of the track and watched him burn laps, and watched what he was doing, and then had him explain some things that he was doing, and it helped build some of the language that everybody's hearing today. So let's get into feedback, and more importantly, a feedback loop. So as motorcycle riders and racers, typically the only feedback we really pay attention to is a lap time. How fast did I go, or did I go faster? And I think when we look at it this way, and I'm just as guilty as everybody else, I want a lap time too, and there are times I am conscientious of that. But when we put that reference, that part of our feedback first, really, we're putting our sport backwards. The lap time comes at the end of your lap. It's what you do during the lap that produces the lap time. Instead, let's think forward. It's the process, right? It's the hundreds of little decisions and actions that deliver that result. So, what are the tools needed to be able to answer the question of how am I doing? How am I doing in real time? How am I doing with all these different things? How am I doing away from the track? And again, it's putting together all of these little things that will help produce the lap time that of course that we all want. So this podcast, what we're really going to do is we're going to talk about a feedback loop, what it consists of, and how to build one for yourself. So let's start with, essentially what is feedback? And I think for our context, let's make it really simple. How am I doing? How am I doing? Am I going through the right steps? Am I going the right direction to meet my goals? Okay? So what is a feedback loop, and how does that differ from feedback? So a feedback loop, it's a way of measuring your output so your next input can be better. Because you can maybe get some feedback, but if you're not documenting it, or if you're not taking action on that, well, it's not going to change your next input. We want a way that you can consistently improve. It's very simple. What can be measured can be managed. So I really want you to think about that, right? A feedback loop is a way of measuring your output so your next input can be better. And a feedback loop should be part of your writing program. And at the very sharp end of pretty much anything, these feedback loops are built into it. And I can tell you, whether it's racing at the sharp end of Moto America or having even been over it in Grand Prix, feedback is so important. And it's broken down in different categories, which is what we're going to get into with everybody here. So how do you know if you're truly getting better or not? Yeah, the lap time tells you what you did, but it doesn't tell you how you did it. So for our purposes, what does a feedback loop look like? And we're going to break that up into 4 categories. And there's a little bit of overlap in some of these categories, and that's okay. Because looking back at how I work with riders and how I work with teams and how I work the people that give me feedback, this is how we do it. So we're going to break it up into 4 categories. And the first one is your subjective measures. Basically, your emotions and your feelings. And the second one is the objective measures, which is really the technical part of it. And the third category is going to be trusted sources. And then the last one is data analysis. So those are the 4 categories that we're working with, which is subjective, objective, trusted sources, and data analysis. So let's start to break those down a little bit. And the whole idea of this is I will give you some examples for this. These don't necessarily have to be your examples, but we can take these and you can customize them for your situation. And again, if you write these things down, organically what will happen is you'll end up prioritizing them in what's important to you. But we need to start these categories and we need to start this process for everyone. So let's get into it. Subjective measures. It's how you're feeling. It's what you feel. And I think it's really important to measure how you feel and why. And let's say you're going to a track that you've never been to, right? So you've never been to a track, you've never been there, and you're feeling nervous. Oh my gosh, I got to get up to speed quickly, or it looks like it's going to rain in the afternoon, and right. So okay, you might be feeling anxious with it. Then you can have the complete opposite. You might be feeling ultra confident. Oh my gosh, it's 85 degrees. I got new tires, et cetera, et cetera. You're feeling confident. And I think what's important is understanding that these end up being our natural, these organic feelings that just come to you. They naturally come in the order of importance to you. And this is telling you what you need to do to mitigate the emotion. If you don't know the track, yeah, okay, well, what do you need to do to go to the next step and figure out how do I get rid of that anxiousness? Do I need to look at a track map? Do I need to do a track walk? Do I need to watch some video? Whatever it needs to be. So what the emotion is trying to do is it should drive you to the technique. Emotion shouldn't be the technique. And I think it's a really great thing to have this emotion, because that's telling yourself how you feel. Don't hide it, but do something about it. So emotion should drive your technique. So recognize it, figure out what it is, and then bring in the techniques and habits to help mitigate that. The next one is your objective measures. And there's just a ton to this one, but in this context, the objective measures are what the track and bike are telling you. So objective measures can be, your apex. How are you getting to your apex? How are you getting away from your apex? How close to the apex are you? What controller are you using at the apex? Where's your end of braking? How's your initial throttle? Do you have weight on your inside arm? Is your core engaged? What about your fork travel? What about your rear shock travel? What about your brake pressure? Tire wear? All of these things become objective measurements that we can take a look at. And again, it's building a category for these and recognizing them, measuring them, and being able to improve them. So third one is trusted sources. And I think that this is an incredibly important category. Because as we well know, there's a ton of advice out there and there's a ton of opinion out there. So a trusted source is someone you can rely on for objective information that comes from extensive expertise that remains impartial to your situation. So if somebody's if somebody's partial to your situation, you may not be getting the best information. If it doesn't come from an area of professional expertise, then that may not have merit. To be clear, not everyone deserves an opinion, and I have lots of stories on that. Matter of fact, I think there's merit in telling one, which is I had a rider on the Rick team, and we were at Barber, and we were downloading the data from his bike. I was talking to his crew chief. Talking to the data guy from looking at the preliminary results of the data and going to form our download. And the rider comes up to me and goes, "Hey, I really think I need to pick up my corner speed in turn 2. And I said, "Okay, great. Well, tell me more about this. Where is this coming from? And let's break this down." And he goes, "Well, I feel pretty good in there. But a friend of mine was watching from the outside of the track and he said I looked slow in there." Okay, so when we looked at the data, of course, that wasn't. He was on par with everybody else. And of course, now he's focused on something that he shouldn't be focused on. And it came from an opinion from somebody that doesn't have expertise. So trusted sources. This is something we need to spend more time looking at, right? You need an objective viewpoint. Someone that can give you information related to your riding that can be trusted. Not everybody, as we said, deserves an opinion. And quite honestly, amateur coaching gives you amateur performance. Professional coaching enables professional performance. So I am constantly looking for feedback from the right sources in pretty much everything that I do, because all I want to do is improve. And the nice thing is that when you start to hone in on these things, it lets you figure out what you don't want, and it really focuses in on what you do want, and then what you do want it becomes just a lot easier. And then the fourth category is data analysis. And the two things that work with data analysis is simply video review and data acquisition. And we'll get into that here in just a little bit as well. So data analysis is video review and data acquisition. So, okay, great. Awesome. We got 4 categories. How the hell do I do it? How do I execute this? And how do you build your own feedback loop? And so I think when we look at the first category, your emotions, when you're going to go into a situation, it starts with define what your success looks like. And does your emotion line up with that? So if you figure out ahead of time what you deem to be successful for your upcoming race or your track day or whatever it may be, define that success before you get there and see if your emotion lines up with it. And then you can reconcile all that and figure out what's going on. So again, we talked about if you're going to go to a new track, boy, going to a new track, it's going to take up 80% of your brain space. So you work on those factors that help you learn a new track. Let's take another example. Let's say you've got new suspension on your bike. and you've got some angst thinking about, oh my gosh, will it work? Will it be better? How do I even know? Well, you can start this by essentially writing down your before settings, right? Writing down your new settings, and then after each session, spend time in that zone and go through, oh, you don't have a download sheet? Oh, that's okay, I'm gonna make one available for you. So write down what the bike is doing in different places on the track so you can provide the feedback and see if it's better or worse. So developing this loop of every session. And this is gonna help you so much better. And you can simply even use it with a track map as well, right? You can take a track map and write down something for every corner and figure these things out. I'm not comfortable in turn 6. And then that goes along with your objective measures of, well, I'm not hitting my apex in 6. Okay, well, then you can reconcile those two things together to figure out what's going on. So again, the subjective measures is your emotions. We want to do something to be able to mitigate your concern, and we also want a way to be able to track it. All right, so the objective measures. There's a lot to this. And again, you can kind of individualize it a lot for your circumstance, but there's so many things out there that we can use for this. And let's try to keep this boxed in to essentially the report cards on the track and also what your bike is telling you. So an example, if you have a track with 15 turns, we have 15 opportunities per lap to ask yourself how you're doing. And if you really want to go a step further, if there's 5 reference points for each corner, that 15 corners, you have 75 points of feedback per lap that are available to you. So how is my initial, how's my braking? How's my turning point? How's my slow point? How's my apex? How's my exit apex? Where am I letting off the brakes? And you can start to map those things out with a track map. So there's a ton of things there that you can use. Same thing with your bike, right? So whether it's using data on your bike, or maybe it's even as simple as a zip tie on your fork or tire wear, it's acknowledging these things and building a consistent habit of tracking them. So how do we track these things? I just have a notebook. Okay, so what I've done is on my website, khcoaching.com, there's a tab available there that says forms and my glossary. And if you click on that one, you'll actually have 2 downloadable forms. These are the exact forms that I use. They're the forms that I use for a rider for every session, every run session. There's notes in there, and the notes are your feedback, your general feedback, plus actually we've built your scorecard in there as well. So we've got some subjective and objective measures in this as well. And yeah, I did put a lap time thing in there as well, just so we can at least measure that. It's something that, even though I won't tell a student about, a lot of times I will measure lap time just to see where things are at. And it helps me keep track of it. So we've got a fantastic session download sheet there. And I've also built in a bike download sheet. And it's pretty intense. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And there's some things in there to help you ask yourself some questions on what the bike is doing in some specific parts of the suspension, whether it's initial fork and the bottom of the fork, initial throttle, all these different things. So we've got those available on the website to help you start this process and build your feedback loop. So trusted source, let's talk about this one. I think the first thing with a trusted source, before you even get into talking to somebody, is giving yourself permission to accept feedback. And I can't tell you what a big deal that is. Once I was able to take feedback in a way that I was only focused on it helping me improve, was a game changer for me. And so give yourself permission to accept feedback. And the second step with that is find yourself a trusted source. Ride with them. Do online training with them. Set multiple sessions with your trusted source. And this is something where you're looking not only for an evaluation, but you're also looking to see how you're improving. And this is such a big step. So whether this is somebody that you go to a track day, right? So it's like, hey, I know this guy's a trusted source. Can he ride with me in the morning? Can he ride with me in the afternoon? Fantastic. Can he video me in the morning, video me in the afternoon? Or it's as simple as, after every day, I'm gonna send a video review. You can send it to me, Racers360. I'm not here to pump that stuff up because there's lots of ways to do it, but there's ways for you to build this loop, feedback loop, for a trusted source. And the other thing about this is that it helps make you accountable for it as well. So working with data acquisition, category 4, working with data acquisition. I think the important part with this is separate gathering data versus working the data. We need base data, right? We need base reference laps. We need to be able to see what you're doing so we can see how you're improving. And even onboard video, right? So it's establishing baseline video of how you're doing. And whether it's your first session or your last session, we just have to start somewhere with it. And there's a lot of other things that we can work on in this category, but the ones that we really pay attention to are, of course, like I said, the video. And when we work with data acquisition, we initially start with just GPS speed. That's really all you need. An AIM Solo DL it can carry us through literally 90% of the things that we need to be able to work with. So working with data acquisition, awesome. And once you have it, then we look for having the appropriate reference to be able to compare to. And if that's something that you want to get into, we do training with that. I do training with that as well. So we can kind of wrap this up a little bit. If you're truly interested in improving, this is how you train. This is part of your training loop. Measured and managed training with these 4 categories. And I know this is overwhelming, right? There's so much information here, and I've hardly touched on some of it. But what we've wanted to do is build some framework for you. And if you simply stick with picking one of these categories and working one of these categories, that's going to start taking you to the next one. And just being able to start your feedback loop and build it is what's going to give you the success in your riding. And the main thing is, pick one. Start somewhere, but just don't pick your lap timer. Pick something else, right? Because remember, the lap time comes at the end of your lap, and it's all the things that you do to get that lap time. So, all right, 4 categories of feedback, right? Building your feedback loop. Emotion leads to technique, right? Category 1, emotion leads to technique. Category 2, your objective report cards, whether it's on the track, whether it's the references on the track, or whether it's with the bike. And category 3, building a trusted source. If you don't have one, get one and commit to working with that trusted source consistently. And the last one is having some sort of data acquisition, right? Whether it's video on your bike or the bike data itself. There's so many cool things that are out there for that. Tons of stuff available. So, all right, feedback loop. Let's get your stuff started.